quick intro here, Luca. So Luca received his PhD in computer science at UC Santa Barbara. I know UC Santa Barbara is a party school, so I know you had some fun.
Border Patrol will always remind me.
Yeah. Some charges. So he went on to co-found Evidation Health and worked as chief data scientist there for 10 years. Evidation grew to become a unicorn company valued at over $1 billion. And actually at the beginning of 2023, and I kind of remember Luca telling us at the time, he ended up joining Sage Bionetworks as president and CEO. And I'm sure he'll tell you a lot more about what they're up to over there on the data side of things. And Luca is really a technology forward person, not afraid to venture, I think, into the unknown. And, our team has had the luxury of knowing Luca now for 2 or 3 years. And so we champion kind of everything you're doing and everything you guys embody. So without further ado, please tell everybody a little bit what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here today. So I'm a computer scientist by training, and I actively do research in AI for health application, and I run a big data bio company, nonprofit. So by nature of my split personality, I find myself in this vignette quite a lot. And I will do, again, in a couple of weeks when I go to NeurIPS, I work with a lot of AI researchers. They come to me and they look for purpose. And they say, I really would love to work on health, but there is no data. Okay? And I usually then end up listing lots of data sets or open in quote, data repository, all of us, Biodata Catalyst, UK Biobank, and 3C, and the answer is always like, are those in Hugging Face? And then it tends to not be the case. Okay. So what am I trying to say here? There is a lot of health and biodata that needs to be produced, and I really applaud the people that are focusing on that problem. There's also a lot of health biodata that's already being produced, has already been produced, and is not visible, and is not accessible, and is not used. So we started making progress on the sharing piece of health and biodata. As was mentioned earlier in the panel, now a lot of the funders require data to be shared. But sharing does not mean reuse, right? Like our friends from high energy physics remind that open is not enough. And then others have called that's even more true in the health and biospace, because data sometimes has privacy, reason through or perceive, by which it cannot be openly shared. It's not a zip file on the internet you can just download. So it is sitting on an enclave, or it is under some controlled access. And so it really is most of the time open in appearance only, like this MIT researcher Lee Antonio Celli calls it. And that really hinders our ability to find it and reuse it. If you think about the mental process that goes from having an idea that some data could help prove or disprove and getting all the steps towards reuse, it's a multi-step process. It goes from, hey, I have this idea, I'm searching for data, either through web search or data search, or go to data portals, or I go to my friend or Nextdoor lab. Then I select the data set for relevance, usability, quality, which by the way are all function of downstream use, which is still unknown. Then I start kind of exploring it and look for plausibility, bias. Is it really the thing I want? How many patients are in there? And then I finally reuse. Okay, so it's a multi-step process that takes us from I want to work on some data to what is the data I want to work on. And if you have data in appearance only, you really are forcing yourself to not have all the right-hand side of the process, right? Like you're stopping short of search. Search already doesn't work in things that are not searchable. So you end up with what people call dark data. Dark data is like dark matter, makes up to 85% of the mass of the universe, but does not interact with light. So we have a lot of dark data in health that is there, but is not visible, and therefore it's not reused, and it doesn't turn into cure for patients. And that is measurable in many ways, but one of my favorite one is go to papers with code, look at the most cited data sets, and look at where the first one that is in health AI. And usually it's at position 41 or 42. And all data sets before that are, muffin versus dog, or fantastic other thing that deserves being studied. But like, seriously, health is the most important thing we have in our life. Like, health is wealth is probably the biggest line item in our GDP. I think it would deserve a little bit more attention from the AI community. So why is not that attention there? Because if you think about what you would like to be a market, but is not a market, of data contributors, you can think of them in the creator economy terminology as people that produce data. Think of NIH researchers with a primary goal of studying a certain mechanism of the disease and are collecting some data to answer their primary question. Or think about healthcare institutions that are collecting data as part of offering healthcare to their patients. And then you think about data users, like people could extract additional insight from that data. That could be AI startups. It could be life science building new assets and new drugs. It could be citizen scientists. It could be patients themselves. The former data contributors, data creators, have no incentive to share the data. Well, now they have incentive to share, but again, to get it reused, right? They have only incentives for their primary use, not for the secondary use. So these two communities never get to talk. So that's what we're trying to do at Sage. We're trying to be this data illumination front, shine light on the dark data, and we're trying to bridge this no man's land in the middle with infrastructure. Well, you need a place where to put this data and make it available. Governance, a lot of this data is sensitive. It cannot just be left open in the internet. So you need a team that checks if the purported use of a user aligns with what informed consent says, for example. And then obviously science coordination, text and images are self-explanatory. Spatial transcriptomics of neurofibromatosis, not so much. You need to talk to science to understand what it is about. And then community engagement, right? Like, you need to engage community where they are. Health data might not necessarily be on Kaggle or Hugging Face. So how do we do that? How do we do open science with closed data, open science with dark data? Three products, if you will. One is Synapse. It's our data platform, more than 3 petabytes of data, mostly omics, 20,000 projects, could be used by anyone in the world. Anyone in the world with less than 100 gigabytes of data can go deposit on Synapse, generate a DOI, and then link it from their paper. And obviously, it's really hard to deal with 20,000 projects that don't have great metadata because no one has an incentive to build that. So, of course, we strapped an LLM on top of it. So now you can go to Synapse and ask questions such as, I would like to work on longevity. Any data there? And then, you can start honing in and really find the data that you potentially need, and then come to our governance team and request access to see if it's a controlled access data set. Another piece of the puzzles are portals. A lot of the institution we work with are not independent contributors anywhere in the world. Sometimes there are large consortia of researchers funded by NIH. And in that particular case, we come in as a key component of how this data gets collected and reshared. And in that case, the data tends to be very large, very complex, change over time. And so the best way to navigate it is actually build a portal around it. So we have portal, those are usually very therapeutic area specific. So we have one for Alzheimer, one for exceptional longevity, one for computational oncology, one for neurofibromatosis, and many others. And then finally, a third key ingredient, which gets me really excited, are challenges and benchmarks. Yes, it's cool to try to get people to see data directly, to find data, to illuminate the data itself, but it gets even more interesting and easier sometimes to bring in different communities if you are building a task on top of a reference data set. So you have a bunch of mammograms. Some people might know what to do with mammograms, but if you define a problem on that mammograms, which is detect breast cancer, at that point you're creating an API that forgets the science piece and can engage directly the community of solver that only know about how to build a really good machine learning algorithm that from scans detects breast cancer. And that's what our challenges platform does. We've run challenges on detecting tuberculosis from cough recording to trying to predict preterm birth from microbiome and many others. You can check that out on our website. Challenges are really wormhole between communities. Like they bring such a diversity of perspective. They are won by sometimes high school students, like really different phenotype than the scientists that put the data together. And since for challenges as well, there is a search problem. There's a lot of other platforms out there that are running challenges. We build a search engine for challenges, or at least an index for now. That's called openchallenges.io. Please go there. If you don't find the challenge you're running, let us know. We'll add it to the registry. Challenges and benchmarks really can help with the problem of reproducibility in science, which is even stronger, in my opinion. This is research from myself and collaborators in the machine learning for health domain. We have looked at reproducibility of machine learning for health algorithms across multiple dimensions and compared to more established fields in machine learning, such as NLP and computer vision. And machine learning for health, unfortunately, underperforms. Even if the applications are higher risk, we have less reproducibility. That's not good. And that's even worse, actually really bad, if you focus specifically on digital health. For example, here on the left-hand side, you have how well can we detect if you're getting sick from your wearable data? We don't know, because every paper has their own data that is not shared, their own code that is not shared. And you see accuracy that goes from 90% to 50%, because the case definition is different, because the period of detection is different. So we really need benchmarks in machine learning for health to be able to believe what these algorithms can do. And really the goal, the long-term goal, is not just reproducibility. It's what David Ohono at Stanford called frictionless reproducibility. That's what's happening in the AI right now, right? Like anyone can build on anyone else's shoulders seamlessly. And this frictionless reproducibility is predicated on 3 pillars. 1, the data is open. 2, the code is open. 3, you have a culture of challenges and benchmarks, so clear metrics that everyone agrees on. And if you have dark data, you're already missing number 1. So what are we missing here? Another saddening exercise I like to do to energize myself is to go to Hugging Face, look at the most downloaded data sets in the last month, and you get a number usually is like 10, 15 million. And then I go to Synapse, the platform we run, and the most downloaded data set in the last month has been downloaded 600 times. Now, it's not apple-to-apple comparison, okay? But it's also 5 order of magnitudes away. I think there is room for improvement. I think we can get a lot more eyeballs on health data if we try. And coming up to the end of my talk, imagine how much value for society we could have if health and biodata was reused more effectively. Thinking about open source, I heard this citation from Jim Zemling, the CEO of the Linux Foundation, and I looked up the paper. The value of writing every single line of open source code is only 4.5 billion. Like it will take that to recreate it. But the value that it brings to society, the impact on society, is estimated to be close to 9 trillion, okay? And a lot of the 9 trillion is standing on an edifice of very low resources. And I think one great example is with LLMs. 80 to 100% of tokens in every LLM out there comes out of Common Crawl, which is run and maintained by a nonprofit that has around $2 million a year of operating budget. Okay, so the edifice of AI stands on that little thing. So, which brings me to, we're going to have the same problem in health and bio. You're always going to have the same problem when you have a need for a platform that serves open data but cannot directly monetize the data. Okay, Wikipedia, same issue. Common Crawl, same issue. And right now, we'll see a lot more of that in health. This example here is data sets that was uploaded to Synapse April 2023. September 2023, Nature paper cites that data sets in Synapse, gets hyper cited, gets super hot. Everybody talks about it. Everybody starts downloading that data set. that data set is 9 terabytes, $900 of egress cost. Every time it's downloaded, we have to run to Amazon and say, hey, can we do something here? And thanks to their generosity and their open data program, now we're not spending tens of thousands of dollars or egress cost, but this is just an example. Like egress is just a piece of it. Obviously, you need an infrastructure team, a governance team. Open data infrastructure has a cost that is not directly supported by the data that goes through it by definition. So who's going to pay for it? That's, I think, is a question that this community can have a lot of thoughts on how to solve. Is a problem with incentives. And let me conclude with one thought. Data. Okay, but what about patients? That's what brings me back to patients. We could agree on first principle, then bringing more eyeballs to data is just a good thing because we see that that's working in other domains. And that's probably where I come from since I'm a computer scientist. But we're also seeing direct outcomes realizing already. So from the computational oncology portal I showed you earlier, Genie, there are 5 clinical trials that are running and 1 approved asset, 1 drug that came out of that. Synapse itself is churning citations to papers to data that it's holding. So more than 5,000 papers are cited data that's on Synapse. And the challenges are creating algorithms that years later get FDA clearance. So these are really things that translate, like Brian was saying earlier, like we sometimes stop short of translation. These are translation endpoints. And I really think it's important to maybe not directly optimize for those, but take note when those happen and use them as inspiration. We're a nonprofit, we accept donation. Thanksgiving is coming. If you have some crypto that has a quick surge in value lately and you want to do some tax write-off, we also accept crypto donations. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful stuff, Luca. We have time for maybe a couple questions here before we move into the next panel. So if anyone's got questions for Luca, please go for it.
Hi, Mario Malichki, Stanford University. Thank you for this. This was really amazing. I was wondering, because I come from the meta-research field, when will we see this published as a meta-research paper? There's a lot of community. I'm blessed to be here and listen to these amazing talks, but how do we make this a little bit more presentable to the researchers out there? Half of them don't know about Synapse. They don't know your outputs. They don't know any of this. And I think we need a little bit of more of those kind of things visible in the published papers.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. We have a lot of scientists at Sage that are in the publishing industry. They are writing papers, but one more is not going to hurt. So if you have time and ideas or groups to collaborate with, let's talk.
Hi there. Thank you for a fascinating talk. Oh, yeah. Thank you for
okay.
Quickly, yeah. I work closely with the UK Biobank team over in Oxford, and one of the challenges we have, especially as we add in more data sets, is how do we keep the trust of the patients, and how open access it should be is often determined by the feedback that we get from the contributors to UK Biobank. And I just wonder, that's one aspect of the talk that I'm curious about. How do we sell this to the actual patients contributing the data, who are often getting more and more elderly and maybe more and more distrustful of this kind of project?
That's a fantastic point. I could have a whole talk just about that, on how do you engage the community you're studying in this study. Like, we actually have a group of Sage that's only doing that kind of research, and I'm happy to connect you to the head of that group, McDowell, because a lot of time when you see a data set that doesn't that is open access in appearance only, if you go back and ask the patients that collected that, they would love them to be more accessible, not less, right? Like, so we think we're protecting someone's privacy, but in reality, we're actually hurting their will of this being used more and more. I'm saying, like, that's the research that Meg is doing. So I think it's a very important topic, and I will connect you to the actual researchers that know about what they're talking about. Fantastic. You're definitely next this time.
Sure. Thank you. Olga from the CNOM. How do you see Sage interacting with the existing data repositories like Sequence Read Archive and from NCBI and the European Nucleotide Archive, are people uploading to the SRA and Sage, or only to Sage, or what's the human one, dbGaP for human? How is that working?
I think that's a place where there's a lot of work to do. Platform interoperability is something that NIH is starting to push forward and having a working group around. The GA4GH community is also looking at how to think about platform interoperability, but I think it's really a big issue that the fragmentation among even open platform is so huge. That's why I'm so excited about search engines, because I love to serve up content to people that are searching that is not necessarily on Synapse. I don't need to have the data on my platform. Like the data could be anywhere else. So maybe that would be solved at the search level. Obviously, my lens is biased, but yeah, a lot of work to do.
All right, a round of applause for Luca. Thank you, everyone.